Thank you, Javier. Please start the recording. Let's wait a few more seconds for participants to join today's webinar. Okay, for 2 seconds, so I will say is ready. We are ready to start. And of course, let me say good afternoon, good morning, colleagues. It's a pleasure to make this a quick introduction today. My name is Giovanni Pio from WFP. I work as a co-chair of the GSS task team, and we supported all these activities of communication marketing of the Global Share Services webinars. If we move to just a few slides at the beginning, thank you to go and just a few words to give you the context on the UN reform agenda. GSS, moving to the next one, thank you, Ethan. GSS form a key component of the UN reform agenda, and it is a part of the broader global supply architecture for the UN to support our operation. You all will know the location-dependent framework that are BOS and CBO, but we also now have the global location independent to cover the location independent activities. And these days we see more and more high potential for all the global interaction to happen and the service to be delivered across agencies. That's why we foster this number of activities and cross collaboration. If we move to the next page, thank you. Very quickly, this high expectation for GSS, we did move our terminology from GSSC to GSS to better reflect the latest narrative, where GSS, Global Share Services, can be delivered by, of course, a local physical presence service center, but also leveraging a digital platform these days. For example, the hub, the fleet portal, and the logistics service marketplace. We all know that there is a large shift of activities from location dependent to location independent. And there are many reasons why. Of course, COVID was one of the post-COVID activities, new ways of working, the expanded use of technology. These are all drivers that are pushing activities from the country to a more global level management service. This one will be, of course, taking into account the efficiency agenda. 40% of the saving that we expect for the entire roadmap are belonging to GSS. And there is a task team dedicated fully on this activity that meets on a monthly basis to work together. Moving to the next one, thank you, Ethan. The task team, as I said, there are 7 entities, the largest service providers, that work together to make sure that we're able to combine what are the global service today that we're able to offer, but also to guarantee clear communication, to explain that working together will make sure we have access to efficiency gains at all agencies. And on the right-hand side, you can see that there are efficiency, but also quality improvement, better oversight, increased cooperation, client satisfaction. All these are key benefits that under the service of Global Share Services can be achieved through collaboration, simply because we know that some of the services require upfront investment, require change management, require quite a long investment into some of the area. And large agencies and service providers are able to make this investment up front and now can share the benefit for service recipient. GSS is a market-driven solution. Of course, agencies can collaborate as a service recipient, but ultimately it needs to be seen as a fit in terms of context for your operating model at local level. Next, and the last slide before I hand over to the UNDP team. Last slide, I wanted to represent the overall current thank you, Ethan. Exactly this one. The last slide represents the overall global share service offering. These are services that now the service providers are willing and ready to promote and serve. And for the services, there is not need to go country by country, but there will be an agreement at global level that will foster and, of course, promote the service throughout the organization for implementation. Implementation will be done in a local context given the local needs specifically. This is the last slide. I will hand over now to my colleague Hogan, Deputy Director of the UNDP Global Shared Service Center, that will focus today on HR services benefit entitlement. Thank you, Hogan, for your time today, and over to you the floor to introduce the presentation of your colleagues. I'll try to come back at the end to make sure we close into 1 hour session. Feel free, of course, to chat it, to type message into the chat box and engage bilaterally after the session. Hogan, with this one, over to you.
Thank you, Giovanni, and hello everyone. Please do let me know, Giovanni, if the sound is bad. I'm actually on my way to the airport, and I have to call from a cab, unfortunately. Colleagues, today we'll be presenting the GSSC, the UNDP Global Shared Services on HR benefits and entitlements. I just want to say upfront that the majority of our clientele that use this particular service line also take advantage of our payroll services, which we'll mention during the presentation. So today, I'll be taking you through the first few slides, and then I'll hand over to my colleague, Anne Ramos, who actually is based in Copenhagen and heads our benefits and entitlements unit. We also have with us Ms. Bernina Machoka. She's actually based in Dakar, and she's in charge of our client relationships. We also have Ida, who works with Bernina. So we'll have a panel of people for your Q&A sessions and covering all that you need to know about the UNDP GSSC. If we can go to the next slide, please, Ethan. So just a very quick background of our Global Shared Services Center. Some of you might know that in UNDP, we started operating our Copenhagen Center back in 2003, offering benefits and entitlements and payroll services. In 2012, we then opened our finance hub here in Kuala Lumpur, which is where I am right now, focusing mainly on finance and procurement services here. From 2019 to 2021, we then undertook to significantly expand our portfolio of services, both on the HR side and on the finance side. We now provide a very wide range of services in both these areas. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this slide here just gives you an overview of the UNDP Global Shared Services Center. So we provide services to all 170 plus UNDP countries and territories, as well as 85 UN partner agencies and entities. As I mentioned, our main HR center is in Copenhagen and our finance hub is in Kuala Lumpur. But to cater for time zone and language requirements, we adopted what we call a follow the sun business model. And in 2021, we set up additional presences in 6 locations globally, much smaller centers in Addis Ababa, Dakar, Bangkok, Amman, Istanbul, and Panama. These centers cater for language and time zone capacity, as I mentioned, but also they look at priority cases, being in the same time zone as our clients, so they can quickly expedite cases. In terms of volumes, our HR benefits and entitlement services cater for over 40,000 UNDP and UN agency and entity personnel. And we administer payrolls of over 1.2 billion per annum in 114 different countries. Our finance team processes over 500,000 transactions annually and in excess of 4 billion worth of payments. So we're quite mature in many of these services. And the volumes are extremely high. We also have a contact center that provides tier 1 help desk support and FAQ support to our clients. It triages critical and urgent cases to relevant service delivery teams for management and for resolution. And our colleague Penina, whom I mentioned earlier, oversees the contact center. Our contact center staff are in all 5 regions, and they provide service and support to regional bureaus, country and council offices in Arabic, English, French, and Spanish during the working hours of those respective regions. To ensure optimal performance is maintained at all times, we have a dedicated data analytics team that monitors, analyzes, and reports on the performance of the GSSC with regards to service delivery, KPI adherence, and client feedback. We, as UNDP, we're moving to a new ERP system, Quantum, and several other agencies are moving along with us. And with this system and our new ServiceNow platform, our client management platform, we're going to be enhancing our reporting dashboards, making sure that our country offices and our agency clients have full reporting on our adherence to SLAs. If we can go to the next slide, please. So under our benefits and entitlements service, we offer everything from hire to separation. We do hire, life events, organizational events, position management, and separations. We do this for a wide range of contract types. Our international FTAs and TAs, our local GS and NO staff. We do it for interns with and without stipend, for service contracts, and our newly introduced PSA contract modality, our personal service agreement contract modality. We also do it for volunteers and JPOs. Last year in 2021, we administered over 17,000 hires, 14,000 separations, and 40,000 contract extensions. But as I mentioned, this team is very mature, operating since 2003. So our processes and systems are well geared for this. As highlighted earlier, the majority of clients, agency clients that use our best services also use our payroll services. For payroll, the services we undertake is the updating of banking information, the review and entry of manual earnings and deductions, monthly validation, resolution of payroll issues, and payroll sign-off. If we can move to the next slide, please. So with regards to service provision principles, like all service providers, UNDP signed the UN SDG costing and pricing principles and the client satisfaction principles, and then we continue to abide by these. We've undergone quite a lot of change as UNDP over the past 3 years with our Global Shared Services Center, and with the introduction of Quantum and our new client management system. There's going to be a lot of process changes as well going forward. So with this here, 2023 is going to be quite an interesting year for us. And our clients will also be experiencing some of the changes that we're going through. Sorry, if I can go to the next slide, please. So as highlighted, we've got our ServiceNow client management system. What this platform allows for is for clients to log requests directly to our GSSC. And we use this platform to allow clients to track cases. It also has dashboards, so you can see, the status of cases, and it has two different tracking, two different status tracking dashboards. One is for our HR focal points, who can actually log in and see the status of cases, but the individuals as well, employees of the different agencies also have access to the UNO where we can request from them any information that they need. Supporting our service tracking system is Power BI dashboards that we are developing. And these here give a lot of detail with regards to SLA adherence. So you'll have full oversight of our service, how we're adhering to SLAs, where your cases are, and going forward in 2023, these systems will be strengthened quite significantly. If we can move to the next slide, please. So based on our past experience in terms of readiness, we take on quite a number of clients, but depending on the complexity of the relationship, we will require about 4 to 6 months preparatory work. There's a lot of nuances here, and for smaller agencies and entities, it could be a lot quicker. But just to be on the safe side, there is quite a bit of discussion that takes place and preparation that takes place prior to us taking on clients. For example, we need to first assess your requirements, should you be interested in these services. And most importantly, we need to look at the staff rules. If the staff rules are very much in line with UNDP rules, the take on is a lot easier. If they do differ, then we need to amend our systems to ensure that they can accommodate your specific rules. We then need to establish corporate MOUs and SLAs and operating procedures. Many of this we have in place already, so that's really not a problem. System enhancements, as I mentioned, if the staff rules differ in particular. But then there's also a data cleansing exercise prior to migration, and might mention some of this sooner. So ongoing cases, it's preferable if those are closed in advance. But Anne might comment on the data cleansing. And then, as I mentioned, if volumes are relatively low and the process is fairly straightforward, our staff rules align, then it happens rather quickly. If we can go to the next slide, please. So the support that we need from our service recipients, ideally would be volume projections. If you can tell us upfront what your estimated volumes are, and then we can look into capacity requirements. We look at rules alignments. We look at systems. We go through UAT, but we will handhold you through this entire process. We'll discuss with you reporting, any specific reporting requirements that you need, DOAs. And then we'd also need your support in talking to respective country offices and help with the whole change management and communication process. Next slide, please, Ethan. So this slide here just gives a very quick overview of some of the enablers, standard contracts and documents, SLAs, SOPs, pricing, etc. So all of these we do have in place. I just want to mention upfront that with regards to pricing, we find that different clients have different needs, and as a result, we have to tailor make pricing according to our clients' requirements and obviously our pre-discussions. So happy to engage with you on those. And then the final slide is just a very quick overview of some of the clients that we have, WFP being our biggest client right now, and then UNFPA. And that just gives you an indication of the volumes. So before I open the floor up to questions, I just wanted to hand over to my colleagues, and Penina, Ida, any additional comments before we move on to questions, the Q&A session? Over.
Thank you, Håkan. This is Anne Romosa in Copenhagen. I think you have covered it all well, so I think I'll just wait for the questions and if there's anything specific. Thank you.
This is Penina. Nothing further from my end.
Thank you, colleagues. Giovanni,
Nothing.
over to you.
I think in the absence of a reply, we can move on to the questions to colleagues attending the webinar. So you may go ahead and type them on the chat or simply unmute yourself and UNDP colleagues will take it. Thank you.
Was it all crystal clear?
If I may ask, while our colleagues are probably thinking about questions, to what extent has the principle of mutual recognition been incorporated into this initiative and reconsidered or reshared with support with other entities in the practice of HR? And have you found any difficulties and also successes when applying the principle of mutual recognition in the HR practice? Thank you.
Maybe my colleague Anne can elaborate on that there. But given that our services have been quite established for some time, and our client base as well. These are clients that we've had for quite a while. So I think for the HR side, not so much. But on the procurement side, there is some traction there. And the recognition of other agencies.
Yes, I think it's more.
Policies.
Yes, can you hear me out? Well, yes. All right. Good morning. Good afternoon. No, I think so far we are managing with as Owen explained, we have a discussion when an agency wishes to use UNDP services, then we go through our policies and rules, and then we see if there are if we're aligned or if there are certain areas where another agency or UN entity has different rules. And then we usually have a discussion about whether we can accommodate it system-wise. Maybe it's in our templates that we can accommodate it. So I think so far we have been able always to find a way to either the agency or the entity will actually maybe adopt what UNDP is doing, or they may differ, and then we find a model where we can accommodate that. So I would say so far from the agencies and entities we have worked with, we have found a solution. But it all depends. We administer with very different models. Some agency we administer under their letter of appointments, and some agencies are administered as UNDP staff on behalf of that agency. So it very much depends on the model that the agency wishes to be administered in accordance with. So I think so. We haven't used the mutual recognition as I think as you probably do more literally in the procurement, but we find a way. So I hope that answered the question.
And sorry, if I can just ask you to just add on, for those agencies who ask us specifically to use UNDP contracts, if you could give us examples of that and why they actually specifically ask for that sometimes. Over.
Yes, I think it's very much, I think we have a combination of examples on the list below. We administer OCHA staff, so we administer them as UNDP staff on behalf of OCHA. It can be for many reasons. For some agencies, it can be being a UNDP staff member in a remote duty station, or where UNDP has already a setup. It's easier to be UNDP on behalf of the agency. But in other duty station or for other agencies, it can be because it's it's easier when you're on the ground to have UNDP administer on behalf of the staff members. So I think there are a mix of reasons.
Thank you. And there is a question in the chat from a colleague, Khalid, asking about the system integration and configuration made on the wider UN system and entities, knowing that they all have different ERP systems. And we heard that at the beginning of the presentation, that there is an ongoing exercise of actually moving on to a new ERP and bringing other organizations into that ERP. So how, I think if you could expand a bit more on that, it really is an area of interest now with system-wise in this era. Thank you.
Javier, my name is Ram. I also represent UNDP system, and I represent the UNDP payroll here. If you may allow, I can take up this question. It's a wonderful question that Khalid has put here. Yes, very well said. If the agencies subscribe for specific services and would like to retain some of the other services, I'll give you a typical example. We have WFP and ICROM, some of our customers who specifically have subscribed only for HR and payroll services, retaining the finance in their respective ERP systems. So what we had to do specifically for these customers is that when we are done with processing the payrolls, we need to send the data, the payroll information in a specific format so that they can absorb these and then post them into their general ledger. So we have done specific integrations for customers where the financial requirements are a little different. The earnings and deduction mapping into their financial systems are a little different, and we have catered to these needs. And another example to mention for WFP is that the staff rules WFP follows were under FAO thing, whereas UNDP had different set of staff rules. One of the example is the ability to follow probationary period, and we had done system enhancements so that the WFP staff members are managed according to FAO staff rules, and this has been accommodated. And there are also customers who opted to keep their leaves in their own system without bringing the leave management, the absence management into our HR administration. However, end of the month, the leave balances will have to be sent to us so that these are displayed on the payslip. So we built specific integrations so that the end of the month leave balances are brought over from these agencies into UNDP system, and then these get displayed into the payslips as an estimated leave balance. So there are several such examples that I can talk about where we have built specific integration or configuration change or reporting needs have been taken care of so that different customers got benefited for their ERP systems. I hope it did answer. And Anna, Hogan, colleagues, you want to add anything more, please?
Nope, nothing from my side. Thank you, Ram.
It appears there's another question in the chat. As the head of global onboarding offboarding team at UNHCR, I'd be interested to know how the interaction goes between UNDP and other UN agencies, UNICEF, for example, regarding onboarding and offboarding processes, and also payment of entitlements for new hires. If you all would be able to speak to that. Over.
Yes, thank you for that question. UNICEF, of course, have their own administration. When we administer for UNICEF, it is in our field offices, and UNICEF will approach locally our UNDP office and ask for the services to administer in locations where UNICEF doesn't have a presence. I would think that in this case, UNICEF is administered as UNDP staff on behalf of UNICEF. We have recently, a year ago, we have centralized all our local staff administration to GSSC. the Global Shared Service Center in Copenhagen. So we are now executing all of the actions, but for some agencies, such as UNICEF, where we are talking about a few people in certain locations, and it can be service contracts, or it can be PSA, no, sorry, not PSA, but service contracts or staff. We are probably administer them as UNDP on behalf of UNICEF. And then there's a cost recovery happening. So when we do that, then we do everything. We do the onboarding offer, and we do payments on hire. This is not international staff. The international staff are purely managed by UNICEF. This would be local contracts.
Do you have any Sorry, it was my question. My name is Anton. Do you have any examples of collaboration with UN agencies for the administration of international staff or for the payment of entitlements?
Yes, so we administer UN Women, UNFPA, we administer for UNU is probably a good example, UN University and the UN Staff College. We do it actually very similar to what you do in UNHCR. We bring on board people. If you take UN University, they do the selection, the recruitment, and we receive the instructions from them, and we issue an offer with the UNU letterhead, and then we take it from there. Everything, medical clearance, onboarding, letter of appointment, but we do it all on the UNU letterhead. And then we process, we have the lump sum approach in UNDP, so we pay travel entitlements and shipment as lump sum, and then when they onboard, we do the hire entry, or we hire them in our ERP system, and then UNU. So that would be UNU, but UNU is also a partner agency in our ERP system. But we also have a few OCHA international staff. We administer them on behalf of OCHA, and we sort of have them under our umbrella, and then we charge OCHA for the cost through the service clearing account. So there are maybe just a few examples. There are many different models for the staff. So the international, of course, a separate category. And yeah, we can give more details about international local staff, but international staff we have administered since 2003 for a number of agencies.
Thank you very much.
I see a hand raised. Feel free to ask your question, Faris.
Yes, good afternoon, colleagues. I'm Faris. I'm working as head of personal administration unit with UNHCR in Budapest. It's very interesting to see this approach, the one that you put in place regarding this administration aspect. I have a question about the legal side, because you are basically implementing administrative decision in a way and interpreting the normative framework of the organization that is in contact with you. But in case of litigation or complaints or grievances, do you consult with this organization, or do you have some flexibility, and all of these issues resolved? Thank you.
Yeah. So for agencies where we administer under their letter of appointment, everything is under that agency. So if there is a grievance, if there is any legal dispute, it is, if you take it UN Women, it will be UN Women Legal Office. It will be disciplinary cases are taking care of investigations by their audit and legal. So we will, if we receive a grievance, we will always consult them. If there are discrepancies between UNDP rules and UN Women rules, we will always go to the HR director of UN Women, and they have the ability to do different from what UNDP is. What they will often ask us, what would UNDP have done in this case? We will explain it, but it's the agency that will ultimately decide what they would like to do in a case. So. But anything grievances, legal, disciplinary is handled by the agency. The category of staff where we administer them as UNDP on behalf of another agency has been a bit more tricky, but I think our service level agreements now clearly stipulate that if there is a disciplinary matter or legal matter, it is the agency, not UNDP, that is responsible for it. In the past, we also administered UNDSS, and we have an agreement now. Anybody that is on UNDP on behalf of an agency, legal grievances are handled by that agency. So it depends on the model, but it worked quite well. We are in close contact with the HR focal points from the other agency, and we will always ask them for advice if we are, as there are gray zones and we are in between rules, we will always consult with them. So there's what we do is we have specialized teams. So we have a team for UNFPA, a team for UN Women, and they build the UNU, and they build that close connection with the HR business partners in that agency or the head of HR. So there is a close consultation process. So we that's kind of what we live with. Every agency has a little bit of a different way of applying the rules. So there is always a conversation. How do you want to do this? This is how UNDP would do it, but how would UN Women, UNU, etc. like to do this? So there is consultation.
Thank you. And I have two additional questions, if I may. The first one is, do you find this model is more difficult to implement when the rules, the regulation are very different from the ones that you're implementing in terms of the UN staff rules regulation? Did you find it more difficult when the provision, the normative framework is very different from the one in place in general with the UN? And my second question is, do you find it more difficult to implement this model or this approach when it comes to some specific benefits or entitlements? Because of the nature of entitlement, it's more difficult to apply this approach, for instance. Thank you.
Yeah, Personally, I think it's easier when an agency administers under their own letter of appointment, because I think there are more clear delineations. It's what can be, I think in 80–90% we are probably very much aligned on our entitlements, and then we can take the best from both sides. But where there are certain policies, if they have an impact on the payroll, is probably where we have no issues if it's in the policies and how to apply. But if there's something that has a payroll impact, a good example is the telecommuting policies that we are all developing right now. They are very, very different from agency to agency, and they have an interesting payroll impact. So I think it would be a nightmare for my colleague Ram to have to program telecommuting policies that are very, very different. And I think that's probably an area where we are currently very much not aligned in how we do it. But I would say for most other entitlements, it's some agencies have an accelerated step increment. We don't have that in UNDP, but it's fairly easy. Forgive me, Ram, if I'm, but I think it's fairly easy to do an accelerated increment for language. So there are small things where we differ, but we can manage it system-wise. But then there are major things like the telecommuting policies that's giving, I think everybody has a headache about that right now. And we are managing at least three different telecommuting policies right now with various implications. So that's a bit challenging right now. So I think, yeah, we always find a way somehow.
Yeah, to give another example to add to what Anna said, like WFP has a specific rule that if a staff member in the unlikely, unfortunate event passes away middle of the month, they pay the full month's entitlement, the full month's salary. Whereas with UNDP, no, we take the COB as the date of death. But yes, we are still able to cater to the needs by amending the system rules and reconfiguring the payroll entitlements accordingly. So the WFP staff members are catered to for their needs. So far we are able to deal with these differences, Faris, if I may put it like that. Yeah. Thanks.
Another example that I can think of is some of us have rank and post, some of us have promotion. That's easy to deal with system-wise. We just call it something else. But so that's the things we always line up. What do you do in this situation and what do we do? Can our systems align to that, even though it's called something else? And that's another example where we usually find a way.
This is Penina. I just wanted to also add to the question by Faris on the legal side. As Anne mentioned, we are progressively, when we have new clients or new agencies where we signing new SLAs, we are now just ensuring that the agency is administering fully the legal process of the staff member of the other UN agency. We did have in the past legacy issues where we are administering a staff on a UNDP letter of appointment, for example, and the legal process would kick in on the UNDP side. And as you know, this is a very lengthy process, legal cases with respect to staff members involving investigation and so on. So we have found that over the years, our experience is that it's more efficient for the agency to handle the case, because the subject matter that is being investigated or for which the staff member, for example, is being held responsible potentially is something that has occurred within the environment of the agency. And it's very difficult for UNDP to get into the details of what happened and so on. So that's one of the changes that we have been embracing as we sign our SLAs. I don't know what the experience is on your end, but for the legal principles are the same across the UN. The rules are almost the same, but the time it takes and getting evidence of what happened in another agency's environment is very, very difficult. So it's more efficient for the agency to handle these sort of situations. And that goes for ethics as well. Over.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is another question from Georgie Bateri. Georgie, would you like to formulate the question yourself? Otherwise, I can do it on your behalf.
Hi, everyone. No, I can. Thank you very much. So I'm Associate Compliance Officer with UNHCR Payroll, and we have these third-party deductions of UNFCU savings and loans and La Mutuelle savings and loans. And I wonder if you have the same concept built in your payroll calculations, and who is the data owner? How do you collect the monthly deductions, and how do you reconcile with the organizations? Thank you.
Hi, Georgie. This is Ram again. I'm payroll specialist with UNDP. Thanks for the question. We do give the opportunity for our staff members to do UNFCU deductions, but not necessarily for or against the loans. So loan is something that the staff members are requested to deal with their financial institutions themselves. However, we allow them to deposit a portion of their salary or in full for the staff members into UNFCU. La Mutuelle is something we have not come across heavily, because I understand that's more for Switzerland-based agencies. For staff members that do have loans, and then there is an obligation for any kind of loan deduction, the way we operate is we allow the staff members to send a portion of their salary or their salaries into such financial institutions, and then arrangements are made by the staff members with those financial institutions to take care of the deductions after the salaries are deposited into the financial institution. For example, we have UN SACCO in Kenya and Uganda, where it is more like a semi-financial institution that offers loans and other subsidies to the staff members. However, We do not deal with the monthly deductions. However, we deposit a portion of the salary into the beneficiary bank accounts with UNSACO, and then UNSACO deals with it with the staff members. This is from a payroll deduction standpoint. However, upon separation, as part of the final settlement process, we do have an obligation, excuse me, we do check with UNFCU for any outstanding loan settlement, and if UNFCU reports anything back to us, we do make deduction up to the tune of the financial entitlements available, and then we send it to UNFCU. So this is an understanding and agreement with UNFCU that we do help them deducting any outstanding loan dues from the final settlement, but not during an ongoing contract as part of the monthly payroll. I hope I did answer, Jerry.
So if I understand correctly, you don't receive any instruction from UNFCU. The monthly contribution from the staff members is just a possibility to have part of their salaries transferred to the UNFCU account. So it's up to the staff member to decide and to communicate it to you.
True. You got it right. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I think there's a question in the chat relating to quality monitoring system.
Yes.
Yes.
Donata, you may go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. From the shared service center in Budapest of the FAO. So it was interesting to understand a bit better how you work with these different client organizations, how you report back on them on SLA compliance, but also, customer satisfaction or anything else that you report to them, and whether you do it by organizations or globally. Yeah, just a little bit more on what you do. Thank you.
Shall I say, Karina, you want to?
I can take a stab and then you can you can also go ahead. So yeah. So again, my name is Penina Machoka. I'm responsible for performance, quality reporting, client management in GSSC. So it's a bit of complicated question because, as Hogan mentioned, and I think my colleague Anne and also Ram mentioned, we are now transitioning into a new ERP effective 9th January. So this will change quite a bit, but the answer is yes. We do have reports. Different clients have different reporting needs. Some monthly, some quarterly, some semi-annually, annually. So our reporting is tailored to what the client needs. We also do have surveys that we can send out as frequently as necessary. It depends on what we agree with the respective client. What I do want to highlight is that even prior to moving to the new ERP, we have moved into real-time online reporting. We are planning to move into HR for this pretty soon, but for the finance services, we have already been able to have a live dashboard for our internal clients and one external client where you can see for yourself live online the status of your transaction, all your transactions from the time the service request was submitted all the way to completion, and the dashboard gives a live SLA performance report that you can see on a daily basis. The platform is on Power BI, drawing data primarily from our new platform service now as well, and previously from Oracle CX. We'll be transitioning from Oracle CX as well. We're looking to have similar reporting when we move, but this will take we want the ERP to stabilize first, and then we can move into the live reporting. But this is something that's already ongoing. And our hope is that with our clients, we will minimize, the back and forth about where things are by having the global reporting. And in terms of type of reports, they range from, reports on volumes, reports on whether SLAs have been achieved, what is pending, what is waiting, client satisfaction. Also, clients are able to respond immediately after a transaction to say whether they were happy with the service or not, on a rating scale. But we also have the supplementary mechanism of doing a survey. So let me hand over to my colleagues, Anne and Ram, if they would like to add anything.
Yeah, I think you've covered it well, Penina. I think our colleagues in FAO know ServiceNow very well, and we have implemented it in the same line of thinking that we will also have this, what is it called, the customer thermometer.
Yes,
we are not
exactly.
as advanced as you are yet, but we have it. We are using ServiceNow for all the agencies. And we're still 1 year from, I guess, implementation. So we are still learning and improving it, but the data is there, as Penina's saying, and we have the SLAs in there and can report from it. So we can send you the reports, but I think we're still developing.
If I can just add to this, colleagues, as many of you may know, UNDP used to operate in a very decentralized model, where country officers were providing these HR services to different agencies. And we got feedback back in 2018 from agencies. We did a survey, and agencies highlighted that the decentralized model wasn't working. We had different levels of performance. Some countries were performing well, others weren't. Agencies really wanted to see they wanted to have one SLA with UNDP, and they wanted to see one service level agreement across all geographies. We are now at a stage where we can provide that, and the dashboards that we're talking about now talk to exactly that. You have one SLA with UNDP going forward, and you have one dashboard seeing our service levels across all geographies. So this is become available through clustering, and our clustering project that finished at the end of last year. Over.
Thank you, Hogan, and thank you, colleagues, for the great discussion. I don't see any other questions in the chat or live, so I will hand it back over to Giovanni.
Thank you, Ethan, and lots of course question and answer. I'm sure more will come after the conversation today because more details are required to make the informed decision. But this is the opportunity for us to exchange more information, given there are a number of global services to be promoted and to be, of course, discussed. Thank you a lot for today. We'll share the recording to the various distribution lists, and feel free to engage with the team UNDP in case of any question, consideration, anytime. Pleasure to have seen you today. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.